Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.
Oh, come on. It was a great movie.
No, I agree. I'm just saying it had the most abrupt theatrical finale since the Lincoln assassination. I felt kind of cheated.
Well, sure, but how cool was Hobie, though?
Oh, he's so fucking cool.
Hey, guys. You ready to record?
Hell yeah, man. Where's Eli?
Yeah. So, about that. You know how this week's episode is about Mars rovers?
Uh-huh.
And you know how NASA's latest rover has a microphone in it?
Right.
He tried to go to Mars to podcast from there this week. Is that what he did?
Great. So, yeah.
And so he died of exposure on the Martian surface?
No, not exactly.
Did he blow up on the launch pad?
No. He actually put a fishbowl on his head so he could, in his words, get used to wearing a space hat, and that got stuck.
So he suffocated in that?
No.
Reasonable assumption. No.
He actually became convinced that there was a height that he could fall from that would break the bowl but not harm him.
Oh, so he fell to his death.
Okay. No. See, he was dropping from this overpass, and it turned out there was a truck coming at the exact moment that he was
got
dropping.
hit by a truck?
No. Actually, the truck braked just in time, but it just so happened it was carrying this rare toxic chemical.
Tom.
Yeah, Cecil. Yeah.
Did you write an ever-escalating series of potential deaths for Eli as revenge for all the ways he killed you in the opening sketch?
No comment.
Cool. So why is he really off this week?
He ripped his dick off while masturbating to his mom. That happened.
I feel like we should just let him have that one.
Thank you. He did, though.
Hello and welcome. Citation Needed, podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we are experts because this is the internet. That's how it works now. I'm Cecil, and I'll be counting us down this week. But to get this thing off the ground, I'll need my team of explosive experts. So here to help launch this thing are Snap, Crackle, and Pop, Heath, Tom, and Noah.
Okay, you could just butter a marshmallow and eat it. I don't know why you have to involve Snap, Crackle, and Pop at this point as a vehicle. That's true, man.
Crackle. Yeah, at 45, you're not wrong, Cecil. Everything crackles.
Oh, so
well,
true.
and the pops are because at 46, the eyes are starting to go. I can't always spot the seeds anymore like I used to.
Sure.
Patrons, you are the ball of plutonium powering us every week. And if you'd like to learn how to melt down our hearts, be sure to stick around until the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Tom, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Today we will be discussing Mars rovers, Cecil.
Oh, hey, Noah, we moved from Bill Bryson to Mary Roach then? Is that what happened?
No, but I will lean on her heavily when I do my essay on space toilets.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Nice.
So why did you pick this one?
Well, because after your stars and exoplanets essay last week, I felt like I was in danger of losing my reputation as the resident space nerd. And I didn't think of the space toilets idea until I saw you write in that Mary Roach bit. So I went with this.
Okay, fair enough. Where does the history of Mars rovers begin?
Well, it begins with a whole lot of failure. See, the first attempt to land a rover on Mars came in 1962. The first successful attempt was in 1997.
Oof,
in
rough.
the intervening 35 years, those motherfuckers were just crashing like Teslas. But in the defense of rocket scientists, it's rocket science. It's literally it's our go-to example of incredibly hard shit. And landing on Mars, incredibly hard shit.
Whatever. You go, up and to the fucking right. It's like the first one after you go up and to the right. How hard could that possibly be? I know where it is.
It's the first one.
The Tesla guy does
We
it.
would also not to be like you here, Noah, but I feel like the easiest thing for the rover to do is land.
Well, let me see if I can dissuade you. Now, so Mars was obviously our first target, or among our first targets, when we figured out how to launch rockets, right? It had been sci-fi's go-to planet since the genre's inception. Awful lot of educated people were pretty sure there was life on it. So within 3 years of Sputnik's successful orbit, Russia was already launching spacecrafts at Mars, or at least they were blowing up spacecraft in Earth's atmosphere in failed attempts to launch it at Mars. Their first 3 attempts failed to make it out of Earth's atmosphere. The fourth one got all the way into space and then blew up. And given that track record, nothing but that, they decided in 1962 to try the first Mars lander. Needless to say, it did not succeed. They managed to launch it without blowing it up, but the would-be lander never made it out of low Earth orbit.
Okay, and this is why I'm not you, Noah, because I now land correctly.
Right?
Land.
So America would
I'm glad that joke landed.
Yeah. I felt like it blew up in low Earth orbit, but no, it did. It did. So America joins the race in 1964, 4 years after the Soviet Union's first failed attempt. Mariner 3 launched on November 5th of 1964, failed to separate from one of the boosters, and died before it could reach low Earth orbit. But less than a month later, NASA would launch Mariner 4, which would make the first successful flyby of Mars about 8 months later. Probably not coincidentally, Russia also launched their 6th would-be Mars mission about 2 days later, and though it did make it out of Earth's orbit this time, it also failed somewhere en route to Mars. So at this point, the success rate for making Mars missions work is 1 for 8. And that, by the way, is mostly the missions just trying to snap a few pictures as you careen past at 11,000 miles an hour.
Look, I know you miss all the shots you don't take, but it starts adding up when the shots are billions of dollars a pop. I mean, shut the fuck up, Wayne Gretzky.
Right.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah. Also, you don't miss them. Like, that's not, you just didn't
Nope, that's
spend
not even
billions
what
of
that-
dollars.
Yeah, right.
It's better than missing.
Yeah, you might still have possession
A
of the puck.
billion saved is a billions earned.
There you go. So NASA would go on to launch 2 more successful Martian flybys in 1969, kind of a banner year for NASA, really. And the Russians would go on.
Hey, there's Mars.
And the Russians would go on to launch 3 more failures. So in 1971, after failing to even reach Mars on 9 consecutive missions, the Soviets launched their most ambitious failure to date, Mars 2. It was a 3-part mission that included an orbiter, a lander, and a rover. And one of them actually worked. The orbiter marked the Soviet Union's first successful Mars mission, and it would have been the first spacecraft to ever orbit another planet if the Americans hadn't launched Mariner 9 a couple weeks later on a little bit faster of a rocket that actually made it there 2 weeks before Mars 2.
On your left, you fucking communists. Learn of capitalism. Fuck you.
A one-armed guy on a bicycle? Again?
Hey guys, what do you call 2 successful Martian flybys?
What's that?
Doppler gangers. Doppler. I'm sorry, Noah, you were reading something? You can continue.
I had a bit.
Doppelganger.
No, of course. Mariner 9 didn't include a lander or a rover, and technically neither did Mars 2. It contained 2 crashers. But when their intended lander-rover combo fell helplessly to the Martian surface and exploded into shrapnel, that marked the first time a man-made object ever touched the Martian surface, which is still pretty fucking cool. The Russians would also notch the first soft landing on Mars as well with Mars 3, which launched a few weeks after its prequel. Unfortunately, all that managed to do was transmit 70 lines of indistinct gray photograph before it shut off.
It's like waiting for like 90s porn dial-up, like
yeah,
line.
right. Yeah, exactly. And then
line,
your internet crashes, like somebody picks up the
Damn
phone
it.
just then.
So close to the nipple. We were so close
If I
to the nipple.
squint, I don't know.
Fuck.
Let's
got
just
the
look at a
gun.
magazine of the moon.
God damn it. So, all in all, Mars 3 transmitted from the Martian surface for 20 seconds. Needless to say, they did not manage to deploy their rover in that time frame.
Earth is the solar system's like shitty hillbilly neighbor that keeps lighting off fireworks and you find him the next day in your yard. Like, we're the worst.
We suck. So,
Is that
the
a
first.
finger? Cool.
Probably.
Idiots.
Yeah, probably. So the first truly successful landing on Mars comes in July of 1976 with NASA's Viking 1. So yeah, kind of depressing to be reminded that I'm older than the surface exploration of Mars, but I am. The Viking 1 lander was deployed from the Viking 1 orbiter on July 20th, 1976, and it would go on to transmit data for 2,245 days. Quick terminology note on that, by the way, that's 2,245 Mars days. Mars days are about 37 minutes longer than our days. So you actually do have to specify when you're
I didn't
talking
even
about
understand what
thousands.
you were talking about until now. Thank you.
Yeah, right,
Jesus.
right. No, yeah. So, well, for that reason, when we talk interplanetary shit, we generally use the term sols to mean a day on the planet that we're talking about. The correct way to say that would be that Viking 1 transmitted for 2,245 sols.
Yeah, okay. No, that may be the accurate way to say it, but I promise nobody is going to say
I'm
it.
going to say it that way. No,
I'm gonna-
gonna
No,
say
you're-
it that way.
Thank you, Cecil. Dude, this fucking 50-50 with Eli off, God damn it. Now,
I know.
we got to exert our near majority.
I'm definitely
while
on
we
the
can.
stupid team, is what we're saying. I hadn't weighed in yet, but like, I'm definitely on the stupid team.
It's days or it's nothing.
So when you consider the fact that we've been trying to do rovers pretty much that entire time, and the fact that we made our first successful Martian landing when I was 4 months old, it's actually kind of weird that we wouldn't move on to and also add remote control car until I was old enough to drink. But that's how long it took us. What? Right? Now, that's mostly because NASA was obsessed with justifying the goddamn space shuttle program. But regardless, the first successful Mars rover doesn't show up in the story until 1997.
I don't understand. Just put the rover on the first lander. Get a Roomba and tape a camera on top. Why are we doing multiple trips?
That's so
Every
close to what we ended
dad
up
would
doing,
be so
too.
mad about this.
Yeah. So now this first one was the Sojourner. It was named after famed abolitionist Sojourner Truth because NASA eventually realized that they were going to have to name at least one of their things after a lady eventually. So this little robot was 65 by 48 centimeters and about 30 centimeters high. So like a little bit too big to count as carry-on luggage. It had 6 wheels, front and rear cameras, and its top was completely covered over in solar panels to provide most of its power.
Okay, yeah. Covered is a pretty strong word for something that's smaller than 2 feet by 2 feet. I mean, like anything you put on the BattleBot here would cover it.
No, that's true. Yeah. So,
And wouldn't it be called a Mars Dayer panel at that point? Once it gets
I guess importantly, Noah, googly eyes or no googly eyes?
no
on it?
googly eyes, but they would learn their lesson eventually on that.
Did they put googly eyes on one?
No, but it's close.
Kind
We'll
of.
get there.
Yeah.
So in a lowball strategy that's a bit of a recurring theme in Martian exploration, Sojourner was originally slated to operate for 7 sols and ended up chugging on for 83. In that time, it managed to travel all of about 100 meters or 330 feet. So
That sounds better. It does.
yeah, no, so yeah, right. That's almost 3 times as many units. But yeah, we were cruising around Mars at the breakneck speed of, I calculated, 0.00003 miles per hour or so. But it was still that was a Martian land speed record. God damn
Rob,
it!
it's like teaching your dad to play a video game and you're just like, go to the right. Just go. Fucking go to the right. Just stop. All those bricks are the same. They're all the same. That's nothing. Just go to the right.
So one of the reasons it stayed so close to home, by the way, was that in order to keep it as small and light as it had to be, the engineers had to offload a ton of the work to the lander that deployed it. Sojourner's antenna could only transmit a short distance, and then the lander, which was called the Mars Pathfinder, would amplify that signal and send it back to Earth. In addition to that, the lander had all the meteorological equipment, so you needed that to know what kind of weather you were driving Sojourner in. Unless we think everything about this motherfucker was cutting-edge technology, I have to point out that it measured the winds by taking a picture of a windsock once every hour.
What?
It also noted the time by slightly shifting the camera to the side of the windsock so it could see the sundial on its arm right next to it. Yeah.
And then, like 21 years later, we finally got a spinny metal chicken up there to get a professional reading on the winds. What are we doing?
No, Sojourner's main objective was proof of concept. It was mostly there so we could figure out how to drive a vehicle on Mars. The plan was to eventually send much more sophisticated vehicles to the red planet. But before you do that, you definitely want some practical data regarding what does and doesn't work in terms of like wheel design and suspension and temperature tolerances, etc. It did some other basic science type stuff, but mostly it was driving around for the sake of driving around.
Yeah, for those who contend that spending money on NASA is a waste, knowing that our first mission to Mars was just cruising about probably makes you feel stupid.
No, I should say it's worth noting that the Sojourner was built for $25 million. The entire mission, the lander, the development, launching it and all, cost under $200 million. Those
that's
are
like
huge.
3 Trump golf trips. I mean, come on,
Right,
that's
yeah,
ridiculous.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so those are huge sums of money in terms of everything except space exploration. But in terms of Mars missions, those are dirt cheap. See, this mission came during NASA's infamous faster, better, cheaper phase, which is often derided as a logical contradiction, which it was. It was actually faster, worse, cheaper. But it did allow us to drive a fucking microwave oven around Mars for a few months for $175 million and 3 years development.
Yeah, Daniel Golden's the guy who did that, right? He took over NASA in 1992, and he was like, okay, so everybody gather in. I'm noticing all these TGI Fridays are fucking crushing it right now. So I was thinking FWC.
I think some good came of it. So next up in our timeline, we get the twins. Launched about a month apart in 2003, the rovers Spirit and Opportunity would both successfully land on Mars in January of 2004, initiating what might be the most successful non-Apollo mission in NASA's history. Originally lowballed at 90 sols or 92 Earth days, Spirit would go on to operate for over 6 years, more than 25 times its intended lifespan, and it would cover more than 5 miles during that time. But it was the Ben Jonson to Opportunity Shakespeare. Opportunity would outdo Spirit in every way and go on to become, in my estimation, the most beloved non-fictional machine in human history.
Their success was also the first time the USA didn't destroy Opportunity and break Spirit. So, it's first.
Oh, man.
No, it did break Spirit, actually.
Wait, what's the most beloved fictional machine in human history? That was like a very specific... Wall-E. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Now, which was probably based, honestly, on Opportunity, at least to some degree. Now, to be clear, the two landers were essentially identical. Opportunity just got luckier along the way. Spirit landed first, with Opportunity touching down 3 weeks later on the opposite side of the planet. They were significantly bigger than their predecessor, and I think a lot bigger than most people realize when they see pictures of them. They were 2.3 meters by 1.6 meters and 1.5 meters tall. That's basically a golf cart, right? And they carried a fuck ton of scientific instruments and stuff, but in many ways, the most important feature were the googly eyes. These came in the form of stereoscopic cameras that were mounted on a big swiveling rod at the front of the machine, but it kind of looked like a little head with little eyes. And so suddenly everybody thought of them as our goddamn robotic Martian space dogs and fell in love with them.
Okay, yeah, and if we get them back from Mars, we can repurpose them and then comfort ourselves by pretending that like making them into pets makes old people feel less lonely.
Well, there you go.
So,
yeah, exactly.
You know.
Now, like Sojourner, these were 6-wheeled rovers, and to maximize redundancy, each wheel had its own motor. Their top speed was slightly over 0.1 mile per hour, though they normally traveled at about 1/5 that speed. The dual missions had a long list of objectives, but most of them revolved around answering the question of whether Mars ever had liquid water, which they more or less successfully did. It did have water.
Yeah, it found ice and salt, and it made the first solar system's first Mars-garita. Mars-garita.
Now, Spirit crapped out 6 years on when I got stuck.
Business model is paying off.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Full circle. Now, Spirit crapped out 6 years on when it got stuck in some Martian quicksand. There was an iron sulfate deposit hidden under some normal-looking soil. Apparently, that has very little cohesion, so the wheels couldn't gain traction. NASA spent about 2 months trying to wriggle back and forth to get it free, but eventually they gave up. They did what they could with the stationary platform while they could, and formally ended the Spirit mission on March 22nd, 2010.
So sad. It's like watching Artax die in the never-ending story.
Exactly like that. Yeah.
Fuck. I cried so much at both.
Just some NASA dad I told you we should have put a bag of cat litter in the trunk.
Right? Yeah.
Now you're going to have to rock it back and forth. Rock it back and forth, guys.
Try now.
What?
Opportunity, which eventually earned the nickname Oppie, would soldier on
adorable.
for another 8 years. It would go on to log the current record for distance traveled on Mars at 28.06 miles.
Wow.
And in so doing, it would become such an ingrained part of American culture that when it finally succumbed to a Martian sandstorm in June of 2018 and ceased transmitting, America would lose its goddamn fucking mind. One journalist...
when it succumbed to sandstorm, did it wait for the beat to drop first? Or
So my favorite part of this story is one journalist translated the last transmission data as, and now keep in mind it's sending ones and zeros, right? But this is his translation, quote, "My battery is low and it's getting dark," end quote. And the nation overreacted to the point that I thought we were going to lower flags to half fucking mast over it.
oh no.
Well, I feel sufficiently ashamed, so while I raise my opportunity flag back to full mast, we'll take a little break for some apropos of nothing.
Okay, look, with the severe setbacks in these missions...
You mean like
I think
exploding in the atmosphere?
We're scientists, Davis. We call them setbacks.
Okay, sorry.
Setbacks.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, with all these setbacks, we need to make sure that this mission to Mars is successful this time.
Oh, don't worry, we will. This is the latest in high tech, and it will absolutely be a success, I guarantee it.
Oh, all right, great. Give me the rundown.
Okay, so first, the shaft and the platform. We made it from carbon fiber. We abandoned the aluminum. This stuff is tougher and it's lighter.
It's really sleek, too. I do
Right?
like that.
Doesn't it look good? It looks great. Also,
Yeah.
look here. We replaced the nylon cord with nano spring cord.
So, sorry, what now?
Okay, it's really hard to get into, really complicated, but it basically has the same spring properties, it's just lighter and stronger.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's amazing. Cool stuff.
Okay,
Go.
the
No,
firing
Scott.
mechanism. We upped the processing power in the onboard memory, and we added an artificial intelligence operating system.
Oh, okay. And I love the case with NASA stenciled on it. Did you have that airbrushed? It looks really good.
did. It looks great, right?
Yeah. No, it does look great. It does look great. Now, does it perform like our other projects, though?
No, it's way more simple. Instead of building a rocket and letting it fail, we just put billions of dollars directly into this big carbon fiber bucket. The computer determines the exact moment to light it on fire, and then the nano springs on the catapult do the rest.
Oh. Okay. Can I do the countdown?
Well, we're back, and before we left, we found out how fucking happy Noah was about disassembling Johnny 5. So, what happened next, you heartless fucking monster?
It's a really problematic movie.
All right, so...
Super, super bad.
Oh, yeah. So to give you an idea of just how new we are to this Mars rover thing, we've discussed the first 3 successful Martian rovers so far. All the rest of them in this essay are currently operational. Asterisk. In fact, there are actually more operational rovers on Mars right now than defunct ones, unless you count the ones that Russia crashed into it.
Okay, it's just like Mario Kart battle mode up there all the time
Yes.
now, right? That's what I'm picturing.
Yeah, with the balloons and everything. So let's start this half of the discussion with the Curiosity rover that touched down on Mars in 2012. Now, this thing's a fucking car, right? Like, if you hollowed it out of scientific equipment that's mounted on the chassis, there is room to put a family of 4 on this motherfucker and drive to grandma's house.
So many fucking cup holders, too.
Right?
This is the best.
So this guy it's 2.9 by 2.7 meters and 2.2 meters tall. 2.2 meters tall. The motherfucker could take a picture of the top of Heath's head. Sorry, I have to emphasize this for the metrically impaired audience
Dude,
members.
there's so many other ways to describe that. Whatever.
So anything but metric, right? No, 7 foot 3 inches. So this thing is fucking huge, and it weighs almost a ton. So if Mars Curiosity, if it wanted to kill you, it's got the size to do it. But at a top speed of 0.09 miles per hour, you're gonna have to help it out a little bit. You're gonna want to
like me. Yeah.
Just Mars Eli lying in front of it as it slow motion bumps into him and gently presses him to death like a murderous lover.
It's a great. I'll give you a minute for the visual on that one. Now, obviously,
I just want us to all think about what Tom says right before he says murderous lover. And that we know. Interesting.
So
Noted,
now, obviously,
Tom.
you can't power something that big on solar power alone, right? So Curiosity relies on what's called a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, because that term doesn't have the word nuclear in it, right? So it's not a lie.
Sounds
It's exactly nuclear, though.
Right, yeah, no. So the Curiosity is fueled by an 11-pound chunk of plutonium. And that's all it takes, apparently, to move 1,900 pounds of science around a frozen wasteland for 11 years and counting. Now, granted, that's only 750 pounds on Mars, and it's more lurching than driving. And granted, we don't want cars driving around with plutonium fuel cells, but I feel like it's a good chance to remind folks that we don't want to throw the baby out with the radioactive bathwater when it comes to nuclear energy.
More lurching than driving sounds like every single car ride with Eli driving. Like everyone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, some kid at NASA trying to drive stick for the first time on a plutonium reactor, that sounds safer than Eli, if anything.
Really?
Picking one.
Yeah. So Curiosity's mission was basically concerned with two things. Could Mars have ever had life on it in the past, and could Mars ever have life on it in the future? Officially, the objectives were to determine whether Mars could have supported life in its early stages, to study the climate and geology of Mars, and to determine the role that water played in the geological formations. But the real purpose was to help pave the way for future human exploration. Like, what resources would the geology provide to human explorers? What kind of solar and cosmic radiation levels would they actually be exposed to? Is there a source of available water in or beneath the soil? That kind of shit.
You know, it is comforting to know that we're spending untold millions of dollars driving radioactive Buicks around on Mars to see if we can live there someday, since we've already decided we're definitely not going to fix shit here.
It's very true, man.
Hell no.
100%
That'd be a
not.
whole big thing. So a year into the mission, Curiosity had determined that the Martian environment actually could have been hospitable to microbial life early on, so it moved on to the study of taphonomy, a branch of paleontology interested in nobody cares and I don't understand it. But let's face it. Because we can, there's plenty of reason to drive a fucking sedan around on Mars.
Yes, absolutely. This is awesome. Existential spite is the most human fucking thing. And once in a while, it's pretty great. Like right here.
Now, that brings us to NASA's latest effort, Perseverance, or Percy. Now, unfortunately, this one didn't keep up with the trend of scaling up in size that we've seen so far, because if it did, we'd be like driving a small house around on Mars, and that'd be fucking awesome. But you can't even do that with a bowling ball of plutonium, right? So Percy is the same size as Curiosity. In fact, in a lot of ways, it's the same machine as Curiosity. The same dimensions, same power system, same landing system, basically the same mission. There are some important tweaks to the design, and it carries a much different payload of scientific equipment, but it's basically the same car doing the same thing. But that's okay, and totally worth spending $2.2 billion on, because it brought along an awesome little helicopter.
That sounds like the tagline for Black Hawk Down.
Or Vietnam.
So it was either, I get it, it was either bring the helicopter or just go there and hope you can find a raccoon suit. So
right, yeah, exactly. And there's no guarantees. So Perseverance landed in 2021 with 4 main scientific objectives: identify past environments that were capable of supporting microbial life, look for possible biosignatures in those environments, test oxygen production methods for possible human explorers, and collect Martian rock and regolith for a possible sample return rocket in the future. So not exactly the same as Curiosity, but not exactly different either. But that's not to say that the mission was redundant. NASA was able to build on what they learned from Curiosity to tailor experiments to the environment, and we actually do stand to learn a lot of new shit from Percy. That includes, by the way, what Mars sounds like. I honestly, I tried. I could not think of a single scientifically relevant reason to know that, but we do, and it's awesome. And, by the way, it's public domain audio too, Cecil.
All right, let me play it. Hold on, let's see if you guys can hear it. It's Wind on Mars. Here we go. Can you hear that?
Oh, shit. That sounds Martian-y.
Right? The Marsiest
I love this song.
wind.
Yeah. This is my favorite part.
Sounds a little roomy on Mars.
Right
I don't know. There's a lot of hiss.
Yes.
Is the wind going into the wrong side of the microphone, maybe?
Sounds like Eli Bosnick when he set his mic on like the blender.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. But for all its accomplishments, Perseverance manages to get overshadowed by its much smaller companion, Ingenuity. Now, this is like, it's hard to get a sense of the size of this thing because NASA didn't launch a banana with it for scale or anything. But Ingenuity is a drone. It's got two counter-rotating rotors that are about 1.2 meters across, or about 4 feet. The actual fuselage below them is a little bit bigger than a lunchbox. And it became the first vehicle to ever make a powered flight on another planet on April 19th of 2021.
Nice.
This was a flight of about 39 seconds in which Ingenuity took off vertically, hovered about 3 meters off the ground, and then landed.
Okay, I feel like this is why all the aliens that very clearly came here from other galaxies didn't attack us. They just like felt bad. They were like, oh, that's we'll just take their planet later.
That was just to make sure it worked. Since then, it's made another 50 flights and counting, traveling a total of over 7 miles and logging nearly 90 minutes of total flight time on Mars. Now, a lot of people might wonder what the point of flying a tiny drone around on Mars is, and those people can go fuck themselves. Who the fuck needs a reason for that? Jesus.
Exactly.
So fun.
Fuck those people.
Yeah, but that's not to say that there aren't reasons. It's actually super useful as a scout for the larger rover, but it was mostly included in the mission as proof of concept for future Mars exploration.
Existential spite. Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, but also, like, there were legitimate questions about whether you could even fly a helicopter on a planet with an atmosphere as thin as the one on Mars. And there were huge fights at NASA for years about whether to include this in the mission. But ultimately, Marscopter was too enticing for the nerds to resist.
That, and what NASA won't tell you, is that every other craft that drives up there on land got gobbled up by that face up there. That's what they won't tell you.
Yeah, no, you gotta have something that can escape from the face. That makes sense.
Interesting.
Thank you. I agree.
and that brings us to the most
I'm on the smart team this time? Did I land on the smart team this time?
I know. No, you didn't. And
So I'm just alone. Hey, that's cool.
I was being sarcastic.
all right, so now that brings us to the most recent arrival on Mars and the first Mars rover that wasn't sent by NASA. That would be the Chinese National Space Administration's Zhurong rover, which settled into the Martian regolith in May of 2021, a couple months after Percy. The name Zhurong comes from a mytho-historical figure associated with fire and light in Chinese history. And whereas NASA just lets school kids submit names with little essays when it comes time to name their rovers, the CNSA actually left their rover's name to an online poll. Because I guess Chinese people can apparently be trusted not to use that power to call it Marsy McMars face, as we know that one.
That would have been a risk here. Yes.
Yeah, maybe Noah, or possibly the authoritarian autocratic Chinese regime put up an online poll and then just named the rover whatever they wanted to anyway, because that's exactly what I would do.
No, you're right. That is how they do elections there. You're right.
Yeah.
Now, so
Also, we all know, all of us here would know what regolith means, but just for all the listeners who might not know, what is regolith?
Martian soil. Let's just
got it.
Yeah, fancy term for space soil. Now, so
soul loyal.
I'm there, Heath.
Different.
Welcome back to my team.
It's 37 minutes longer. The soil's longer.
Yeah.
What?
So this is where my asterisk from earlier comes in, because technically the Zhurong is still operational, but that might be because the Chinese government are a bunch of fucking liars, as Tom alluded to already. It's been inactive for over a year as of the time of this recording, and it's widely suspected that it was buried by Martian regolith in a sandstorm. Now, this machine does have the ability to sort of fold up its solar panels and shake off the dust, but it has to have enough energy to do that. And instead of using a bowling ball of plutonium, Zhurong is powered by a chemical compound called hendicaine. Now, I don't know what that is, but I Googled it, and Google said it was a mild sex attractant for various types of moths and cockroaches.
What?
Yeah, that's it's like not remotely relevant to the story, of course. But if I didn't share the fact that China's Mars rover is stuffed full of fucking cockroach aphrodisiac, I would lose my license to podcast.
You would. Hold on, it's fueled by cockroach aphrodisiac. So like a huge pile of Make America Great Again ball caps? Is that what it's using?
Okay, they must have had a weird conversation at some point. It was like, all right, so the rover we sent up there, it's getting a mild, like tepid fucking from Mothra, and it stopped working. We're saying Sandstorm buried it, right? We're saying Sandstorm buried it. And we're switching to plutonium, maybe? Cool.
Now, there's no telling what the future holds in terms of Mars rovers. There is one under development by the European Space Agency, but that's a joint project with Russia. It's been indefinitely postponed due to the invasion of Ukraine. China's also working on the very promising Taiwan 3 sample return mission. That won't include a rover, but it includes a fucking sample return. And then we could just drive regular RC cars over top of the Martian soil at that point. So that would probably count too. Japan Space Agency, JAXA, they have proposed a rover called Melos, but it's been like 8 years since the last update on that one. And of course, NASA has at least hinted about the follow-up mission originally intended to turn Perseverance into stage 1 of a sample return mission.
Okay, good news is we can now get samples of the rocks from Mars. The bad news is that they are just rocks.
But we'll call them regolith. If we call them regolith, it'll sound like it was worth $2.2 billion.
It was worth it. It was worth
They're
it.
like 37 rock units better.
Yeah, there's more. They're longer if you adjust for inflation. But ultimately, look, the point of Mars rovers is to figure out how to do this shit with people. Most of the scientific community has seemed to push back against the very concept of crewed flights, since you can always accomplish the objective cheaper and more safely if you just let robots do the work. There is, according to a dominant school of thought, no scientific justification for crewed missions to Mars. And I don't know if I believe that even, but if it is true, like just because there's no scientific reason to do something doesn't mean there's no reason to do it. The whole point has to be to send human explorers and eventually settlers to Mars. Because I think I speak on behalf of all the American taxpayers when I say that we are not $2.2 billion worth of curious about Martian geology.
And if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, what would it be?
Bless their little hearts, the Russians are still trying.
Are you ready for the quiz?
Always.
All right, Noah. When I heard there was a rover powered by bug aphrodisiac landed on Mars by China, why was I surprised? A, it sounded more like a Spanish flyby than a Chinese landing.
Perfect.
So
Or
stop digging,
D,
you've
all the
reached
above.
gold. Yeah, it's going to be D, all of the above.
Correct. Nicely done.
All right, Noah. Why did the Spirit rover really stop transmitting? A, the antenna didn't get enough Mars bars. Mars bars.
Bars.
Mars bars.
No, we're here. We're here for it.
Is the whole...
I say
the whole
Mars
thing,
soul. Fuck.
Okay.
Cecil, did you come
And
up
Cecil,
with
do you have a
multiple...
question?
I do have a question. Did he
Preferably
answer
with
yours
multiple
first?
answers?
I think
Did he answer yours?
I think we all heard it. I think we
Okay,
all
all right,
heard it
okay.
in the
No, all
deafening
right, okay.
silence. That was what
hey, Noah, what's the best name for you and I's upcoming astronomy podcast? A, The Interstellar Medium.
Nice.
B, Average Jovians. C, Two Guys in a Galaxy. Or D, The Landing Pod.
Oh, nice, D. It's obviously D, the landing.
It's obviously The Landing Pod. I was going to go with Escape Pod, but Sounds like it sounds like a I don't know. It sounds like a room or something.
It sounds like we're trying to get rid of Tom and Heath at the end of the episode. If you say it that way,
and you win, Noah. You win.
All right, I want a Heath essayist. I want Heath to be the essayist next time.
All right. Well, for Noah, Tom, and Heath, I'm Cecil. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Heath will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, listen to Cognitive Dissonance with Tom and I, or you can listen to D&D Minus with Heath, Eli, and Noah. If you'd like to help keep the show going, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod, or you could leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. If you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.